So what's happening in Brazil? We have a Supreme Court. We are fighting against tyranny, censorship, especially from Alexandre de Moraes. And they try to silence the greatest leader of the right conservative wing in Brazil, that is Jair Bolsonaro.
Nikolas Ferreira participou ontem de um podcast nos Estados Unidos e trouxe revelações explosivas sobre os bastidores das eleições de 2022 no Brasil. Informações super sigilosas vieram à tona. E o que você vai ouvir agora pode mudar tudo o que você achava que sabia. A CIA mandou um aviso direto a Bolsonaro. No final da eleição, Bolsonaro teria recebido um e-mail direto da CIA ordenando que ele parasse de questionar o sistema eleitoral brasileiro. Sim, uma interferência direta de uma agência estrangeira no futuro político do Brasil? Mas por quê? O que eles tanto temiam?
We're going there. We're having dinner. Left and right, everybody gets excited to see the face of Nikolas Ferreira. I want to say the proper way. Nikolas Ferreira.
Yeah, it's fun.
Bye, Nikolas. It's great to have you on the podcast.
Thank you, Patrick. For me, it's an honor. Thank you so much.
Mike, how you doing?
Never been better.
That's good. I'm excited for that. By the way, initially, it was just supposed to be us, okay? Then I said, if we're going to have you on, we may as well also have Mike on because I want the Brazilian people, I want people around the world, Americans, Brazilian, to see this because Americans get a chance to see you. Brazilians get a chance to hear from Mike directly. Both audiences need to learn about each other and what's going on with Brazil. And we were at CPAC a couple days ago, 2 days ago. Eduardo Bolsonaro was there. He had a chance to speak. There was a lot of talks about Brazil. And then while we're there leaving, I kind of want a little bit of feedback from you here. An hour after we are done with the interview with Jair Bolsonaro, what can you tell us about what's going on there?
So first of all, for me, it's an honor to be here, Patrick. Mike, thank you for what you're doing for Brazil. I talk about politics day by day in Brazil, but in Portuguese. So if I make any mistake here, I'm sorry. I'm trying to improve my English. And if I make any mistake, okay. So what's happening in Brazil? We have a Supreme Court. We are fighting against tyranny, censorship, especially from Alexandre de Moraes. And they try to silence the greatest leader of the right conservative wing in Brazil, that is Jair Bolsonaro. They say that he tried a coup, that he tried to kill Lula and the vice president, but we know that the one candidate of presidential elections was Jair Bolsonaro. He was stabbed in his belly by an ex-socialist affiliated party. And now they are trying to put him in jail for a fantasy coup. He was here in U.S. when it happened the 8th of January. People entering the Congress. It was a bad day for Brazil. But they are not any terrorists. They did, of course, some small crimes, but they are getting 17 years of jail. Like any other corrupt guy in Brazil, they get this for jail in Brazil, for corruption, for robbery, for anything. So we know that they are doing this for these people because they were wearing green and yellow T-shirts. If they were using red, in Brazil is for the Labour Party, for the socialists. If they were using red, maybe red, they would be free right now. So they are persecuting us for everything we say. Like for now, I'm being sued because I said that Lula is a thief and he should be in jail. So we are facing a tyranny in Brazil. It's very hard.
Can you say that right now? So the fact that you're saying he's a thief and he should be in jail, you flying back to Brazil, is there any risk for you that anything could happen or no?
Yes, of course. I'm being sued, criminal, for saying that. Me as a deputy, I can say everything, and as all the Brazilians should say, though, but we are not able to say the truths in Brazil.
Now, your story, for some people that don't know, Rob, if you can pull up the clip, you were telling me this when we were together, is you at 17 years old, right?
Yes.
This is a school where I think it's called PUC, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it's a Catholic university.
And this is how you went viral. By the way, just so everybody knows, Nikolas has got 17 plus million followers just on Instagram. He posts a clip on Instagram. It gets 1 million likes, not even 1 million views. This guy's the biggest sensation there. While we're there walking around, everyone's saying he will be the president in the next 8 years. And the people want him to become the president in 8 years. But explain to us what happens here, because this is where people learn about you. You're 17 years old in this clip.
Yeah, so just to let you know, guys, I came from a very poor neighborhood in Brazil called Cabana. I don't have any politicians in my family. I think I was the first crazy one to enter in politics. And I am graduated in law by the Catholic University. And at the time of 2015, 2016, there was an impeachment in Brazil that we took out Dilma's ex-president. And then everyone went to the street to go to the protests. And then, of course, me as a young guy, I did the same. But I started to post some videos in the internet and started to go viral. This one is the first one. In that stage, there was a lot of socialist leaders. And then I was working at my office, and I heard that the one guy called Leonardo Boff, it's a guy that how can I say that? He put the socialism in the churches, the Catholic churches in Brazil. And then I heard that he was in there. I said, I gotta say some things right to his face. But as a student, I couldn't. So I told a girl to come over, and I said, I'm a huge fan of him. Please let me talk. And then she said, oh, okay, you're a student. Okay, go there. Of course, she thought that I was a leftist. And then I began saying, thank you so much. Because of you, I'm not socialist. And I started to punch him with my words, of course. And then it went viral. And this was my first video that went viral because I was only 17, 18 years old. I was entering in the law. So
this school
university.
you're going to, is that like is this a liberal school? Is this a far left school or no?
Yeah, so it is, but it shouldn't. Because it's a Catholic university, but it's a very liberal university.
Rob, can you play that clip while we're not going to understand what he's saying. I just want the audience to see when he walks up.
I'm so scared.
Can you play that's him. So you're thanking him right now.
I'm appreciating Leonardo Boff. I'm saying thank you because you made me choose a side in my life. You made 2 interviews in 2003 saying that your theology is not necessarily Christian. In the second interview, that he said that communism was the worst thing in the world. A person said that, and he said that it was wrong. So how I know that how left is a hypocrite?
You're saying this to his face?
Yeah, I'm saying through his face.
You can pause it right here, Rob.
Yeah.
You play this clip. This goes out. Is this the first time Brazil learned about you? Like prior to this, they don't know who you are?
Yeah, I think it was the first time. They didn't know who I was.
And at this point, do you have any aspirations of getting into politics or not yet?
No, I was only into the protests, making some videos, and I wasn't running for anything. I was just 18 years old. I couldn't even run for city councilor. You have to be 21.
Got it.
Yep.
So, obviously, from there to now, with what's going on with Brazil, Mike, for you, when you started talking about, I think it was the clip that we played in the interview with Steve Bannon, where you're explaining the fact that, what really is taking place in Brazil, the powers behind it. And I think even when you were with Joe, on Joe's, you explained the fact that they went to tell him, Bolsonaro, I'll let you tell the story. What is the exchange with how the U.S. was involved with the elections in Brazil?
Well, are you referring to, when you say they went to tell Bolsonaro, you're referring to the CIA director,
Yes.
Lloyd Austin?
Yes.
I actually can pull that up on screen. If you go to the slide deck, it'll be slides starting on slide 12. I can walk you through that. And we'll go through this line by line here. But the U.S. State Department called in massive favors and leveraged personal connections to build voting machines for Lula-aligned Brazil officials. And then the CIA warned Bolsonaro not to mess with or cast doubt on all the new U.S. State Department secured voting machines determining his election. And if you go to the next slide, I'll walk through this. So this is from the Financial Times. This piece is basically about, in fact, if you go to the slide after this first, what they say is this was a concerted but unannounced, so this was basically a covert action by the Biden White House, the Biden Pentagon, the Biden CIA, and the Biden State Department to fortify Brazil's election. So if you go back to the other one, the slide before, so the U.S. provided practical help in the election process to obtain components, especially semiconductors, needed to manufacture the new voting machines. the former U.S. ambassador to Brazil. So they are using shadow diplomacy here because they don't want their formal U.S. State Department fingerprints on it. They're going to a U.S. ambassador in Brazil to leverage his personal connections with Taiwan and to leverage those connections, inside of the Texas Instruments to distinguish semiconductor needs and give priority. Now, we have a semiconductor shortage here in the U.S. They are diverting semiconductor chips that the U.S. needs and sending them to Brazil, a foreign country, to add voting machines that the democratically elected president of Brazil doesn't want. The U.S. State Department and some senior Brazilian officials also asked Taiwanese authorities to give priority to Brazil's need for semiconductors, which are used in the voting machines. And then if you go to the next slides here, so then I say what's funny is both the 1964 military junta in Brazil and the 2022 judicial junta in Brazil received direct help from the CIA to rise to power. And then if you go to the next one, you'll see CIA chief, this is Reuters, told Bolsonaro government not to mess with Brazil election. This is in May 2022.
64 is cool. Are you talking about the Sam? Is it
Brother Sam?
Brother Sam?
Yeah. But I want to just kind of close the loop on this because so Bill Burns makes a personal voyage. This is months before the election even happens. We are now force-feeding Brazil electronic voting machines the elected president doesn't even want in the country. And so the State Department is doing that. Then we send in our covert action boys, the CIA, to say, don't you cast doubt. Look at the language. Told Brazilian senior officials that President Bolsonaro should stop casting doubt on his country's voting system. It's not even his country's voting system. We sent semiconductor chips to build that because Brazil didn't want them themselves. So we're putting the machines in there and then telling them, don't question the results of these machines. So go to the next one. So then, this is also some foreign policy. A month after Bill Burns, it was the Pentagon Secretary, Lloyd Austin's turn to go down to Brazil and push the chief of the Brazilian Armed Forces to commit to actually do a pledge. Go to the next slide. Brazil manifestos seek to rein in Bolsonaro before election. This is before the election in a July conference with regional defense ministers. So we are personally paying, as U.S. taxpayers, for the head of the Central Intelligence Agency to go down there. We are suffering under a chip shortage, and we are getting that diverted so that electronic voting machines can go down. Then we are paying for the flights of the CIA director to go down and warn them not to cast doubt on the machines that they couldn't build without us and that the president didn't want. So this was, and it actually, let me something else here as well. While
Mike, the question here before you go to the next thing, why are they doing this?
Well,
why do they care?
So my focus on this is on the internet censorship side. I love the people of Brazil. I love zouk dancing. I've always been around Brazilian people. I don't speak Portuguese, but I didn't seek this out. This was something that was an unavoidable, inescapable reality of the U.S. censorship work that I was focused on. It was a recurring fact since Trump won the election in 2016, and as soon as Bolsonaro started gaining traction in Brazil, that these issues were interlinked, that they wanted to stop Bolsonaro for the same reasons they wanted to stop Donald Trump. I have that much 100%. There are other issues. So I have this big unpublished report that I'm just showing you some things here tonight, but that'll be published sometime. And there is the open question. So the technical reason they said they did it is because Bolsonaro was a threat to democracy. And
who's they? The CIA and Biden?
The CIA, Biden, State Department, USAID, the NGO swarm. We have this concept called democracy promotion programs, which is, this idea that if something is categorized as an authoritarian threat or it leads to illiberal democracy without sufficient democratic institutional safeguards, we deputize our democracy promotion programs to basically overturn their governments, to do regime change operations, to institute judicial reforms in the country, to control their prosecutors, their judges, their universities, their unions, their media ecosystems, in order to manage their democracy. And when something gets categorized as a threat to democracy, that's a technical term that unleashes the capabilities of our regime change apparatus. Now, they did that to Trump. They did that to Bolsonaro. but whenever something's deemed a threat to democracy, there's always something else behind it, right? In Trump's case, it was very obvious that Trump's policy about Eurasia was the primary reason that they ran all of the coup-like actions against him, from the multiple impeachments, multiple to the 91 felonies, to the prosecutors probe, the Bob Mueller 2.5-year FBI special prosecutors, to the of state-funded media and intelligence 6 ways from Sundays things against him. There were other things that Trump did that in the face of the interests of international corporations and banks, and that one was the one in my view. In the Bolsonaro story, they focus is on internet censorship. It's very easy for me to tell that story, and I can walk you through that whole thing. But in terms of the why they did it, again, technically, it's all they need to say is threat to democracy, but there are always interests underneath that. And there are many threads. You know, there is a sort of murder mystery, whodunit. There are many financial interests in Brazil. There are many U.S. multinational corporations who have interest there. There are interests around China and the relationship between China and the Biden administration. There's the connection with and many of the unions. And there's several others. And this is actually why I'm happy to sit in and sort of play second chair to Nikolas, because I have my own questions around the specifics, who financially benefit from any of these things. Because, for example, Lula connected his whole government to China. You know, and he was very open about that. This is the sort of thing that the State Department and the CIA and USAID typically run operations to stop. And yet you had this very strange situation where we ran these operations to install it. You know, just this Chinese influence in Brazil. When you look at the Biden family relationship with the stakeholders, you look at the Hunter Biden, you know, $10 million basically windfall from Chinese first consulting company and partnerships with Chinese energy companies. You see this recurring pattern with the Biden administration. I don't have, though, since everything I do is open source, I don't have any confessions from people in the U.S.
Okay, so can I just check what I think you're saying, and then tell me if that's kind of what you're saying, and then Nikolas, I'm going to come to you next. So are you saying, hypothetically, to the average person, not somebody that's Mike Ben's caliber, this is your world, deputy, you're working with this department, you're in the world, internet, you're around it, this is your that you study. To the average person, you're saying China potentially used Biden as a favor to make sure Bolsonaro doesn't get in the way, because under Lula, they're able to buy and get more resources and things that they want there, and Bolsonaro gets in the way. So, hey, U.S., we'll stay quiet and we won't do anything with you. We'll keep doing business with you, but we need a favor from you. We need to make sure you go out there and do whatever you can for Bolsonaro to stop talking about the voting system and rig it if you can. Make sure he doesn't win so we can put Lula in, because Lula's going to play game with us, play ball with us, with China. We can get in and do whatever we want to do. Is that kind of what you're insinuating?